All right. Okay, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the North Andover School Committee. Today is September 9th, 2021, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. I do want to remind people that the meeting is being recorded and just ask that you try to silence your cell phones if you are able to do so. Quick note of reference, Ms. Holly Vitsky-Lynch is not here tonight. She had a personal commitment. And Mrs. Picard is remote somewhere behind me. And the rest of the committee is here, Mrs. Petrovsky and Mrs. Madeley. Dr. Gilligan, do you want to introduce your team just for the record?
Certainly. We have Dr. Madeley, Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Lorene Marks, Teaching and Learning. Here. Marcy Bacuzzi, Executive Director of Special Education. We have Cheryl Barzak here from Director of Health Services, and we have Ms. Peace from the middle school.
And no one else coming in online, correct?
No.
Okay, other than the two students who we'll hear from in just a couple of minutes. All right, so we'll begin with public comment. We had one request for phone, but Mr. Kellaway is here. You're kicking things off. So the microphone is there, and if you wouldn't mind just stating your name and your address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Glenn Kellaway, 10 Woodchuck Lane. All right. So I guess thank you, Ms. McDevitt and the committee for recognizing my public discussion. Also, wanted to thank Cheryl Barzak for the last meeting's presentation she provided. It was very insightful. I also wanted to discuss what was presented at the last meeting and further elaborate on the content. So all of you who may have been there, those of you who didn't, right, we had a presentation that had this table here. And because of that presentation, there was guidance from the COVID task force for all of you to make the decision on mandatory masks. I wanted to kind of highlight that this table here was mainly just depicting those who have vaccinated and those who are not vaccinated. And I believe that it really doesn't depict the real life circumstances we're under. Also in there, it was discussed that we had an 80% target vaccination rate, if I'm correct, that we're looking for to unmask the children. I believe in this graph here that you're really missing some huge variables. Some huge variables which I like to point out is those who are immune, naturally immune, those who have come down with the coronavirus and have fully recovered. Just to put that in perspective of how many people amongst us who are now naturally immune, if you go to the Johns Hopkins website there, you'll see that about around 99,000 those in Essex County are now fully immune because they've contracted the virus and they fully recovered. If you put that up against how many in the total population of Essex County, going by the consensus, you have about 789,000 citizens. You divide that by the amount of immune, you get around 12% of the current population out there is naturally immune. That's a pretty large variable that we're missing from this graph. That can create a high watermark. If you revert back to those who are seniors, we have 75% of the senior population who have been vaccinated. But a high watermark, if you add that 12% to it, congratulations, you've hit your 80% mark. Also, the variables that are missing are those of us. We see a doctor in New Hampshire. We don't go to a doctor in Massachusetts. And the reason I say that is that these numbers are coming from the MIIS vaccine registry. That's for Massachusetts citizens, those who see a doctor in Massachusetts. Those of us who go to New Hampshire are not going to be captured in that. Also, you have a missing variable is those who opt out of being in a vaccine registry. You don't have to participate in it. You can fill out that you don't want to participate. So I'd like to note that for the public discussion here, that I think if you...
About 3 minutes, I'll give you another...
All right, I'll finish it up.
Wrap up.
So
Okay.
what I'm basically just highlighting is that throughout the presentation, really wasn't questioned on those who are immune versus vaccinated versus none, who hasn't gotten anything. So I'd like to get the point that you may have reached the 80% mark already, and therefore you don't have to necessarily mask everybody because we are at that state. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Additional public comment? No? Okay. All right. So Dr. Gilligan, we will move on to some recognition.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not get her here tonight. Bev Zagari, most of you know, she's worked here since 2004. I don't know how, most days she keeps track of my schedule. She keeps everyone organized. But she has served this district now for 17 years as the administrative assistant to the superintendent of schools. And she's really been the glue that's held this central office together. I would call her a pillar of strength in this district because she has served since 2004 as the administrative assistant for 9 superintendents. And on opening day, I mentioned names that I haven't thought of in a long time. She had served under Harry Haratunian, Dick Bergeron, Paul Szymanski, Dan O'Connor, Jimmy Marini, Chris Hoddle, Kevin Hutchinson, Jen Price, and now myself. And she's just a remarkable human being. And she's retiring officially this week. Michelle McHugh will be taking over, who's worked as Jim's assistant in finance and operations, and I know she'll do a tremendous job. But I wanted to recognize Bev for just unbelievable service. And again, she likes to do things behind the scenes. She doesn't like the public limelight, but she's tireless in her efforts on behalf of supporting not only the superintendent, but this office, parents, students, kids. And I can't tell you, a lot of phone calls start off with Bev Zagari here in central office. And she gets you to the right folks to get you the right information. So if she was here, I would stand up and have her join me and present this plaque that says, presented to Bev Zagari with thanks and tremendous appreciation for 17 years of outstanding service and dedication to the North Andover public school system, presented on September 9th, 2021. So Bev, thank you. You've been invaluable, so thank you so much.
I think we should.
She did say she would watch at home.
But she's not taking the minutes, right?
No.
No, not tonight.
Done with the
Okay.
minutes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Beth. All right, so we will now move on to student report. Ethan.
Thank you
Lindsay?
very much.
There we go.
Yeah, we have a lengthy report for you tonight. Plenty of items to cover the start of this new school year. Sports teams for this season have taken team photos this week. In addition, the girls volleyball team has just had a game tonight against Peabody at 5:30, and it was the home opener. The girls field hockey game that was supposed to be today was postponed due to the rain, but it will be held tomorrow at 3:45 with varsity and JV teams following right after. The girls' swimming competitions will start next week, with their first one being at Central Catholic at 3:45 on Monday. The varsity boys golf team had a match against Central Catholic yesterday, and also yesterday, the cross-country teams went against Central Catholic and did tremendously well, all of them winning and doing extremely well point-wise and performance-wise. And the girls' soccer team won their most recent game with a score of 3-1.
Getting into what band has been doing, they have accomplished a car wash to fundraise for the North Andover Music Association on August 28th, and the band and chorus collaborated together to hold a diaper drive at their summer camp for their local charity, and they collected 4,087 total diapers, which is amazing. And as of right now, they're having a 50-50 raffle for the North Andover Music Association, and the drawing will be held after their NESBA performance on October 2nd.
Going off of chorus news that Lindsay just alluded to, the men's choir, which has pieces for tenor and bass voice parts, has returned this year. The North Andover High School choirs have always had the treble choir for soprano and alto voice parts, so I'm very happy as a member of the chorus to have men's choir for the tenor and bass parts to have their own pieces as well. In addition, the treble choir and Scarlet and Black Singers choirs will also be performing the national anthem at several football games this fall and on the day of NESBA. And the choirs are already planning hopeful events for later this year and a hopeful winter concert with the theme of rebirth.
Now we'll be getting into clubs, and student council decorated the school with class sticky note walls, chalked the sidewalks, and cupped the fence outside the field to welcome the freshmen and the rest of the grades to start the school year. There's a new DESI club, and their first ever meeting is on Tuesday, the 14th of September, which is really exciting, and I love the representation that they're bringing to the school. Math club also just had their first meeting today of this year, and they're looking for members. The Asian Pacific Islander Club is having their first meeting tomorrow after school. And lastly, what I have is that Student Council is planning a dress up to wear gold on the 17th, paired with Team Cure, which is run by Lindsay Pasos, as an effort to be in support of childhood cancer awareness. And there will be a booth at the school during lunch times. So let's donate and help and do our best. Let's go gold, Naz.
Following up on what Lindsay has already stated about clubs, Student Ambassadors is planning on holding a club fair on Friday, September 24th, and more details will be discussed as the club fair comes along. It's the first meeting of the Student Ambassadors will be next week on the 14th. In addition, environmental clubs started and had their first meeting today, so any students be sure to check that out in future Thursdays. The Dungeons and Dragons Club has also recently restarted this past Tuesday. The Drama Guild and Model United Nations are making plans to start their years very soon. And the Spanish, German, and French student exchanges for North Andover High School seniors are still planned for later this year. In addition, some clubs are planning for larger trips that they usually have in non-COVID years, but they're months into the future of this school year. And of course, those are all subject to change depending on what happens with COVID. The school will be updating the clubs on their website, so if you don't see a club and you think it should be there, don't fret, as the school website will still be updating it. In addition, going off of just class things, the senior class is selling their class t-shirts for $15. They would really like all of the seniors to buy these t-shirts to wear to represent the class of 2022 at North Andover High School events. You can buy it before or after school in Mrs. Daly or Mrs. Rassinen's room, or purchase it online in the link that Mrs. Daly sent to all senior North Andover High School students' emails on September 7th.
And the school store is open again, and they're selling candy during lunch, so be sure to stop by for a sweet treat.
Lastly, to finish up tonight's student report, of course, all students are adjusting to the new semester schedule, and we all hope that they adjust very well and start to get back into the groove of the school year. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. If you can hold for a couple of minutes, we'll see what questions we may have from the committee. Mrs. Picard, we'll start with you.
Great report. Thank you so much. I'm really excited that you guys have had like a smooth start to the school year. It sounds really terrific. I think you said, Lindsay, the DESI Club? I don't know what that is. Can you tell us what that is?
So DESI is like a representation of Indian, Pakistani, and I can get up their poster right now.
Nope, I feel that's sufficient.
And
that's very helpful
Bangladeshi.
to me. Okay.
Yeah, and the Bangladeshi cultures, and it's just to like make people feel welcome and understand that there's a space for them if they need it.
Thank you. That's really important. Thank you so much.
Anything else, Mr. Picard?
No, sir, not at this time.
All right, Ms. Petrovsky.
I don't really have any questions. I'm just really happy. I got a little warm and fuzzy feeling as I'm listening to all of the sports and activities and clubs that are going on. It feels normal. It feels good. Sounds like everything's starting off smoothly, and I hope that we can just continue that. So, and thank you. You guys did a great job with the report.
Awesome. Mrs. Madeley?
Thank you both very much. Welcome back, and thank you for representing the school this year, and we look forward to hearing lots of good information from you. Thank you for participating.
All right, so just relatively quickly, awesome first meeting. I think this is the first time you guys were solo, if I remember correctly, from last year. So always great to see you guys kind of shine on your own. So thank you for that. I'm wondering, I know it's early, so I won't actually kind of put you on the spot for this now, but I'm wondering if you could talk maybe next week about the adjustment from the trimester to the semester schedule and the change in what that means for the day to you, and any feedback that you might have from your classmates. You guys are probably one of the only group that really kind of was in the building during that, when we had trimesters, because you guys were sophomores, so you guys and really the juniors. So I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts and feedback are for that, if you can kind of touch base with some classmates and give us some good feedback on that. I definitely would appreciate that. And then again, fantastic report. The one thing I would just kind of add, as well as a little bit of a highlight, is I know on the early release day, a large number of the student athletes in between school and practice spent some time kind of just cleaning up the school grounds, which I think is really fantastic. And I think Mr. Nugent, our new athletic director, helped coordinate that. So shout out to him and the coaches and all the students for that. So perfect. All right. Anything else, guys? All right. Well, as always, you are welcome to stay. We won't be offended if you leave as well. So, all right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
All right. Dr. Gilligan.
All right. I have a fairly brief superintendent's report tonight, but really great start to the year. We had new teachers in on August 27th, and it was terrific, all the people that worked to help make it a great day. Really thanks to Ms. Marks for putting together a great agenda. But, covering with all the new educators, health and safety with Cheryl and Jim. I did a review of RAISE and SEL. It was terrific to have Lieutenant Folds from the North Andover Police Department. He's in charge of school safety from the Criminal Investigation Division. Do a complete review of school safety and our ALICE drills, which was terrific. And a really big thanks to Mike Grant and Marcy Bacuzzi for a Power School review and a review on eSped. There's quite a bit that goes into being a new teacher, not just showing up somewhere new, but learning all the systems and structures involved. And then it was really tremendous to have all the teachers back at the Crozier Fieldhouse on the 30th to welcome folks back. And really appreciative to have, the fire chief, the police chief there. It was great to hear from the town manager. Mr. McDevitt, thank you for speaking as the chair of the committee to address all staff. Really appreciative. Dr. Madeley, did a great job as usual emceeing the event. But that was really, really terrific. I think one of the things that we got really positive feedback on is last year's Hall of Fame inductee, Ray Grady. He came and gave kind of like a pep talk, and it was just awesome. It was awesome. It was great to hear from him. A lot of people said this would be an awesome new tradition to have him come speak. I did tell Mr. Grady, he's a little bit like me. I said you had a 5-minute time limit. He may have gone longer, but really tremendous to have him there. And then the Director of Human Resources, Greg Landry, had the opportunity to recognize 4 members of the staff at that time for 30 years of service. Mr. Poirier from the middle school, Miss Lee at the Thompson, Miss Frymuth at the high school, and Mr. Smith at the middle school. I think we had one more. I think we had a nurse, I believe, at the Thompson, Kathy O'Neill, and recognizing her for her 30 years. Sometimes not everyone comes down to be recognized. They don't necessarily want to be in the limelight. They just do the work. So congratulations to them. Just absolutely remarkable opening. I thought it went really well. So that was terrific. And then we kicked off school. And so one of the things I forgot about, as someone who lives about half a mile from here, is, it kind of kicked in back last April 5th when we came back. But I forgot about the school traffic that we typically experience. And it usually takes a little bit of time to work itself out. And on the first day, we had, always seems par for the course. We had a bus breakdown at the high school, which kind of set things in motion. And thanks to Lucy and Jim for the communication out to the families. I don't know if people have been following the news. We're fortunate we're fully staffed for busing, but there's a lot of districts where they don't have bus drivers. I think it was Haverhill I read was down 30% of bus drivers, and other places. Dr. Madeley, do you want to add anything just about the opening day, some of the operations, and what's typical so folks can know?
Well, you did already allude to the fact that there's a lot of traffic to begin with as people get used to the drop-off and pick-up routines. They do work themselves out pretty well and pretty quickly, as do the bus routes. Lucy is constantly monitoring the first couple weeks to make adjustments. One of the things that we might not be able to adjust as quickly is if we need to add a bus, which we've done every other year or so. We've had to add a bus in order to make sure the routes aren't too long and buses aren't late, either picking up or dropping off. But the availability of buses is an issue this year. We have all of our buses for the routes we have, but getting additional might take a little bit extra time. So we'll do the best we can with what we have and continue to tweak them as needed to in order to make sure all the buses are on time.
Great. And I was really impressed with, I don't know how many folks know Lisa Roberts. She helps head up our North Andover Parent Resource Network. And they showed the film Angst last night to parents about dealing with kids and students with anxiety. And we had a really good turnout, so I appreciate the work that Ms. Marks did on that, Nikki Murphy. But really, Lisa Roberts did a great job with the other volunteers for the NAPRIN, the North Andover Parent Resource Network. And it used to be called the Speaker Series, so it's a little bit hard sometimes when I say NAPRIN, so I'm getting used to saying that again. And other than that, I have Ms. Bozak here tonight. She did a great job with staff getting them ready to open school with all the normal stuff we have. And Ms. Bozak, do we have any updates from the state? Anything new that you want to talk about, or?
Is there something specific you told me?
Oh, yeah, just one of the things we had talked about at the last meeting was test and stay. I think that every school in the Commonwealth applied and was accepted. I think we probably had one of the first applications. I think it was 64 pages, and Ms. Bozak did it over that weekend, looking for my signature first thing Monday morning, and I appreciate that. And just an update of where the state is with that.
So we have had multiple webinars with the state because, as you mentioned, over 2,000 schools are participating and they're pretty far behind. Luckily, because our application was early, we received our Binex Now test kits, which are the antigen tests that we would use for the 2 protocols where we have enrolled in. And that is for symptomatic testing and test and stay. Just to be clear, we did not enroll in pool testing, and I have received some questions because the consent form requires that. And so I have had some questions from parents, but we are not doing pool testing. We are just doing the 2 options that I talked about. So we have asked, there were 60 people on the call yesterday, and all of us asked to have that removed, and they said they just can't at this point because the consent form is too embedded in their software. So we have to go with that if we want to continue in the program. We haven't received the assistance yet from the state, again, because they have so many enrolled, they're behind. But again, I always am happy to speak about the quality of nurses we have in the district, because we did have a few cases, and at the middle school there was one yesterday. And even though we do have the kits and we've been trained, we didn't really have enough extra staff. But Kathleen, who's here, and Jess Wolf, her counterpart, said we don't want these 6 students to miss, 8 days of school, so we're going to just do the test and stay program. Luckily, most of the parents had done the consent form, and we've been flexible at the beginning, but we really encourage parents to get that signed up because it just takes more time. We had another case that had 12 contacts, so
they did it again. So it's been a lot of extra work right now for the staff, so I will encourage people, please get the consent form. It's just one less phone call to make. But now, we also had an elementary school case today, and that nurse did the same thing. So we have about, well, I've written down, we have 22 students that were able to stay in school with the test and stay program between yesterday and today, thanks to the effort. I mean, they were there till 7 o'clock tonight. That's why Kathleen's here. She just left work. So really, they're all working. We really want to keep everyone in school, and that's the goal. So that's the test and stay program. The second, so they'll have to test every morning, and it's still quarantine when they're home and on the weekends. The way they're explaining it is that because we're in school and we're in a controlled environment, we're wearing masks, we're washing hands, we have ventilation, we have these other mitigation strategies. So that's why in school, you can still be in school. They want you to distance and be tested every single day for 7 days, not including the weekend. But while you're home, they do request that you quarantine. So that's the test and stay. The symptomatic testing, again, we were supposed to get extra help for that, but we are testing people that, per the nursing judgment, they're not quote, sick enough to go home based on the guidelines, but we'd like to just do a test, and they've done 18 of those tests since we've been in school, since we've received the Bionics. So we've already started. I'm interviewing someone tomorrow. We're trying to get more staff so that we can continue with the program the way it's been going. We have 19 active cases right now in the district.
19 students.
19.
Students, faculty, and staff.
It includes staff, but I think right now we're at all students.
Okay.
But that does include staff. So this is the dashboard that will, I think today it will be live. So, and I will update it daily.
Okay.
So
And that will be on the website?
it
correct?
should be up today.
It is on the website.
Okay.
Okay. I looked this morning, but I didn't see it there, so maybe it was later in the day. Okay, perfect.
And I asked Cheryl to come tonight just to point out, there's a lot of districts, if you read in the paper, they're saying, they're waiting for the staffing to come from the state, because with these programs, they're bringing it, and so they're putting some of these things off for a couple weeks, and it just really struck me as this is North Andover. This is what we do when we can. And again, Cheryl and her team has gone above and beyond on behalf of our kids, and I appreciate it.
But safely and not to infect other students, so. Yeah.
Great.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions while I'm here?
Well, can we ask any,
Sure.
okay. Ms. Picard, any questions?
Just for Cheryl or for Dr. Gilligan too?
Well, Cheryl's at the mic now, so how about just Cheryl?
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just looking at the website and looking for where our dashboard is. And I'm not seeing it, but I'm sure it will be there. So thank you so much. Perhaps, do you know where it is on the website, Cheryl, that you could tell people?
If you go to the front
Just
page,
look
on
for-
the top of the homepage, it says COVID, and you click on it.
Yep, did that.
And I think it's right on the left, but maybe I could talk to Hillary, and we could have a more prominent spot for it.
I found the COVID page, but I don't find well, maybe that's what the dashboard is. I don't find the reporting for our schools just yet.
Okay.
Okay.
But it may be here. So thank you very much for that. I may have more questions later, Chair McDevitt.
Okay. Ms. Petrovsky?
I don't have any questions, just thank you to the nurses in North Andover. I mean, clearly you're going way above and beyond, and we're so grateful. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Maven?
So I guess the question I do have is, so for these people that you tested, did you find any that were positive that you had to then send home for COVID, or for the most part, were you finding they could test and go back to class?
So all that we tested for the symptomatic went back to, no, that's not true. I have it broken down. Some went home because they had symptoms, but they were not positive for COVID.
Okay,
But when you have multiple symptoms, you do go home because
because you don't feel well.
you don't feel
Because you're
right.
sick, yep.
So some did go home.
Yep,
We are finding, we're having more students come to school sick this year so far. So we originally, as a COVID task force, said that we would just send the parent letter once a week, but we changed that to every night, so you probably got it this evening.
Yep.
we just need to remind people, we've had multiple students that have come with symptoms that they shouldn't be in school. We didn't have that last year, so.
Interesting. Thank you.
So my only question is just, with the test and stay, I'm sure numbers are starting to add in terms of people kind of opting in for that. Is there anything that we can do to help publicize or continuously push that out? Are we making sure that the principals are putting that in their newsletters so that it's front and center for people to see?
Sure, we'll have them send it out again. I mean, we just sent it, so.
Okay.
We have, I think I have 2,500 parents already signed up, so.
Wow.
It's pretty,
Okay.
well, I mean, if your choice is to go home for 8 days or stay in school, it's,
Take my kids.
It's
Yeah.
an amazing option that you were able to
It
put
is.
together.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much to you and the nursing staff.
Thank you.
I did find it on the website.
Remarkable group, so appreciate it. And that is it for the superintendent's report.
All right. And Helen just said you found it, correct?
I did find it on the website, yep.
Okay. Awesome.
I do have questions for Dr. Gilligan.
All right. So you had a question for Dr. Gilligan?
I do, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
First of all, I would just compliment you on the opening day meeting. I thought it was terrific, and I congratulate you that I believe all of those who have 30 years of service had my children in front of them at some point during their time, and they didn't run out of the district, so that's so wonderful. Wonderful to know, so I appreciate all their work. Last time we were together, I asked 2 questions, Dr. Gilligan, that I'm interested in having information about, whether you have it tonight or some other time. And that's following up on whether unenrolled children will be able to get no-cost meals as they were earlier in the pandemic. I realize that that's dependent on staffing, but if we have younger siblings of children who are in our schools and those families could benefit from no-cost meals, I would love to know that that's happening, and I would love to know that we're communicating that with people.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. I know we just talked about it the other day, and I just met with Mr. Madeley this afternoon about operations, and that's one of the questions, so we'll get that information and talk to Erica.
Okay, terrific. And then the other question that I asked with the report with SSA, I think we had 200 students who participated, and I had wondered if that was our full capacity, if everyone who enrolled came to all the sessions, and how far up the data did we go? Our aim was to serve the students with greatest need. I don't know if that was 10% or 20% of those with greatest academic need, and how far we went when we were inviting people, because we invited people that weren't able to come. So I was looking for some of that data, and then finally whether or not we'll be able to consider that for the future.
Yeah, so absolutely. For those who don't know what Ms. Picard's talking about, she's talking about our Acceleration Academy this summer. Couldn't be more proud of the students that attended, the staff leadership involved, the work Ms. Marks did, and absolutely we'll be bringing that group forward for a presentation in the next few meetings. So, absolutely.
Anything
you.
else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still looking for those data points. How many people we invited versus how many came, and how far up the data we went with the at-risk.
Yeah, I can let Ms. Marks can speak generally to a few of these now, or specifically.
I met with the 2 coordinators this afternoon after school, so I have some of that information now. I have other data, so I just need to put all that together. But yeah, I do have that information and have been meeting with them, so I can
Great.
get that to you.
Thank you. I'm
Yep.
patient. That's all, Mr. McDevitt.
All right, perfect. Thanks. Ms. Petrovsky?
I just have a question. So if we have, I think you said we have 19 active cases, and that's students. Do we have some kind of protocol for the students to be, how are they being serviced if they are able to, and or for the teachers? What are we doing to support those students and the teachers if they're not in school and they're quarantining? Because I know last year everybody was home, so it was easier almost. But this year might be a little bit more challenging.
Well, I think as we reported at the last meeting, there is no more remote option
Right.
for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So, one of the more traditional ways is through our outreach, through providing work, through getting that work to folks, and upon the healthy return, getting them caught up in the other pieces. And we'll continue to look at that as we go. I think one of the things about the 19, and it depends on where the day, and I'm just going to turn back for a second. Some of these students, I believe, were out prior to even the start of school.
So these are new ones.
The new ones,
These are
so.
new.
Okay, so, it depends on what day they're coming back, but that's a very good question, and that's something, where we're working on, like a lot of districts.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. As I'm
Yeah.
thinking as a teacher, like, oh.
And
How
that's
do
the
we do this
challenge,
now?
right? Because all the students, the 10 to 30% of the kids in the Commonwealth that were remote last year are back, and now we get the full classrooms.
Right.
So in some sense, we'll have to do that outreach, check in, get the work to students the best we can, see if we can have some check-ins, and then, get them caught back up.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I think I already asked my questions.
All right. The only comment I'll make, Dr. Gilligan, is we met Mr. Grady speak longer because he was actually funny compared to you. So
That's pretty funny.
we give you a 5-minute limit, but we were able to extend him. So I'll just do a couple of quick thoughts or things as we go into the chair's report, and then we'll talk about the subcommittee and the liaison review. One, from everything that I heard from parents and students, excited to go back to school. As weird as that sounds, I think they were really excited to be back. 5 days in person, see their kids. I heard from a couple of teachers who just said that the noise in the building was actually really kind of welcoming, again, as funny as that sounds. Obviously, a number of students had not been in for the prior year, whether or not they were OLA. A number of students kind of transitioned from one school to another. I think this year, more so than in past, the principals really kind of opened up their buildings, did orientation, walked the students around, kind of gave them a little bit of the lay of the land. And I think there was some faculty. I know at the high school some students helped out with that as well. So huge thanks to them. I think changing schools automatically kind of brings a little bit of anxiety, especially in our students. And so I think that's a welcome way to kind of help bring them in. We may not need to do as many days next year as we kind of had to do this year, but I think it's a great thing and always good that we kind of continue with that. It's never without fail that we don't kind of have a bus breakdown within the first week or so. It's just, I don't know
Especially at the high school, Mr. McDevitt.
yeah, I don't know if it's North Andover or not, but it just happens. Bus routes tend to be a little bit longer, as I think you and Dr. Madeley said. They do tend to work themselves out. I know Lucy does a really good job of trying to readjust and make some modifications as we go through. So I do want to just thank people for their patience as they go through. And I know a number of the schools in terms of pick up and drop off and all that stuff. There are long lines to get in sometimes. So again, it's good that we're all coming back. We're all just getting used to that routine as well as the just normal traffic in town as well. And I really just want to take a quick minute and just thank the faculty and the teachers and staff and everybody, and then of course most of all the students for just coming back and opening up school in the way and the manner that they did. Again, nobody asked for this. Nobody was jumping up and down, looking forward to coming back. Mask, not mask, comfort levels, anxieties high on all of that. But all reports, people came back and again, just very excited to be back in school. So thank you to everybody for that. All right. One thing that I did forget a little bit earlier, if you're a school committee junkie and you're watching along, we did not do minutes from the last meeting. The reason for that is just little bit of transition with them. We will do most likely 2 sets of minutes at the next meeting for that. So Holiday kind of threw the publication of that off, and then I didn't want to add it after the meeting was already published. So we will do that. So, all right, so next we're going to jump to the subcommittee and the liaison review. This is an annual kind of just somewhat assignment. Dr. Madeley, I don't know if you can present this or not. Thank you. Present this. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Just a review of the committee appointments that were there from the prior year. I think we did a little bit of shuffling when Mr. Petrovsky kind of joined our Motley crew here. But we do just want to kind of review kind of where we are with this. Mrs. Lynch is not here as well, but I don't see any objections to kind of not having her continue on with the legal affairs, if that makes sense to the committee.
As she's the only attorney, I think that makes sense.
She's the only attorney.
Works.
All right. As we continue with negotiations, Amy and I completed the teachers' negotiation. However, Helen and I actually did the MOA on returning to school for that, and I'm sure we'll be meeting with the union again as well. So just kind of wanted to put that out there to you guys as well.
Yeah, it seems like we should change my name out and put Helen there, since this was the 3-year, like you said, the 3-year
Yep.
contract, but now it's moved on to the MOU, and you both handled that before, and unless Helen objects, it seems like you should continue, the
Okay.
two of you. So swap me out, I would say makes sense.
Helen, you're okay with that? I saw a thumbs up.
Yep,
I think it was a
Good.
thumbs up. Okay.
it
perfect.
was.
All right. Teaching assistants. Mrs. Picard, any thoughts, comments?
I'm happy to continue. We just did that last year, so we won't be revisiting it for another couple of years, but if there's any MOUs or whatever, I'm happy to do that. And Dr. Madeley handles much of that on his own.
Okay, perfect. All right. Policy, Mrs. Madeley, you've kind of done that in the past.
I've been doing the policy since, I think, like my first week here, so over 5 years. So I'm happy to continue with that, but I'm also happy if someone's desperate to take it over. It's most of it we review based on things that we have going on, or should the MASC give us any, Association of School Committees, give us any updates that they've made in reviewing, then we consider those as well. So that's what it entails. Again, I'm happy to continue, but happy to let someone else have a turn.
Okay,
May I make a recommendation?
sure.
I wonder if we might want to have Ms. Petrovsky also be on that with Ms. Madeley, so that we're continuing to share the knowledge and process that we have as a committee.
I was actually kind of thinking the same thing. Like, I would love to just, join and learn at the same time.
No, that's great. There's nothing really to join. We can just have some conversations.
Right.
And then,
Right.
when it'll be Michelle who usually helps us with that.
Okay.
That sounds great.
Yeah, that would be great.
Perfect. All right, School Building Committee. So this was Mr. Teresi. Right now, we are not technically building anything. I have a feeling that may be coming up. We'll be talking about that a little bit more in the school capacity subject. So just kind of put that out there. I don't know if it makes sense to include Holly in that based on the work that she did on that subcommittee, but I will certainly be open to suggestions.
Well, and I also think it's not only a member of our group, but then I think you as chair, or some appoints some community members as well, I think.
Correct. Yep.
So,
What
Yeah,
does
I
it,
think that committee has largely stopped because, Christina Minacucci was on that committee when we were building the kindergarten. So I think it's really going to have to be regrouped and restarted when we're building again. And I don't think it has to continue in place at all times unless we're doing a building. So I think perhaps we can just keep that under advisement until we're building again.
Sure. All right. Ms. Petrovsky, you seem to have a question?
that was actually my question, is do we need it if there's nothing being built? Or do we just add it in as needed?
So technically, it's when we are building and we are planning.
Okay.
And I would anticipate, based on schedule of meetings next week, the planning
Okay.
of new building or buildings as we come into play. We may want to just hold on that until we have the full committee and then fill that at
Okay.
that point. Does that sound, can't really see you, Helen. Does that sound okay? Okay.
Yes.
I think that makes sense, like, we can, get through the next steps about the capacity project, and then look at, there's some policies as well around
Yep.
building, we can look at all that stuff together, the policies, and
Oh, right.
appoint the new group.
Yep.
That sounds like a smart plan to me.
Okay. Harvard?
I have a quick question. We have had the school capacity subcommittee, which we formed after we reviewed this list last time. Is that, and we'll hear from that group in a little bit, if that group is going to continue on for this year, I think probably it should be added to our list, with Holly as the liaison or the subcommittee chair or whatever. But if it's passing, we probably don't need to add it to the list.
Yeah, good question. In part, my thought was the recommendations were from the subcommittee, and then we'd be moving into the building phase. So one is kind of ending while the other is beginning. Thoughts, Dr. Madeley? I know you are intimately involved in all of these.
As you'll see in the presentation in a few minutes, there is some activity for the members, not necessarily the subcommittee itself, but as we go to the schools to do presentations, the subcommittee members will be there for those. So I don't know how you think that plays into it, but the subcommittee itself, I do not envision meeting as a group.
Okay. So I think I'm probably okay with letting that subcommittee kind of end, if that makes sense, and then picking up the building committee based on votes of next week. Okay. Fundraising policies and practices. So this is a project that we did, you gotta remember, Dr. Madeley, it feels forever ago, but about 2 years ago, there wasn't a tremendous amount of fundraising last year, although there was some. I think we probably could sunset this maybe at the end of this year. I think I'd kind of like to see a year or a cycle of hopefully some more normal activity with that, and I'm happy to continue on that.
Yeah, and we're off to a good start. Both Principal Jackson at the high school and our new athletic director, Steve Nugent, have had all of the advisors and coaches sign off on the acknowledgements of our guidelines.
Okay, and just to kind of refresh people, we dove into it to understand why our teams and our clubs were fundraising, how they were fundraising, and what they were spending money on, which is pretty interesting. And then we came up with kind of recommendations and practices for coaches and advisors for that. And so that's what Dr. Madeley just mentioned. Okay. All right, for the Hall of Fame, that is traditionally the school committee vice chair. So I'm assuming you are all in again?
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds fine, and I think it makes sense to leave it as a position, not a person.
Yep.
So as that changes around, it's just the person who comes in always knows.
All right, perfect. All right.
Chair McDevitt?
Yep.
Before we move on, we have custodian negotiations this year. And I'm doing that with Dr. Madeley.
Oh, okay. All right, so let's add that.
And I did that in the last cycle as well.
So that has that started yet, or are you started?
Yeah, we're doing it. We're actively doing it now. We met this week. We'll meet again next week.
Okay,
And we'll come to you guys.
perfect. All right.
And then I don't know if this is a subcommittee or a liaison thing, but you mentioned this summer that you were working with the town with some diversity, equity, inclusion work. Is that something that needs to be added to this list?
That could be in as a liaison, but that is not technically what I would consider a subcommittee.
Okay.
Okay. So just so a little bit of point of clarification, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Subcommittee basically follows all of the rules and the guidelines that a regular committee follows. So meetings are posted 48 hours in advance. They are open to the public, except for negotiations. And minutes are taken, minutes are recorded, and then presented out on that. No more than 2 school committee members can be present at any of those. Whereas the liaison, may be a school committee member who is representing North Andover, for example, like on the Crest board. So that's why I think the diversity one, it's actually really from the town, so it's really not our committee, Mrs. Picard. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Gilligan?
Well explained.
Okay, perfect. All right, so liaisons, BRC liaisons, Building Respectful Communities. Mrs. Picard, I think you've been on that, not just as a school committee member, but as probably a kickoff person for it, going back however many years. Are you interested in continuing there?
I am so happy to continue doing that. And before BRC really existed, my now 25-year-old was a student at Thompson School, and Dr. Gilligan was the new principal. So I am so happy to continue in that historic role for me.
We are very happy that you are continuing that. The budget communication liaisons, typically the chair and the vice chair, and that is as we present out to the Board of Selectmen, so the Select Board, the Finance Committee, working with Town Manager, and Dr. Gilligan for that. Crest, Ms. Picard, you have been on Crest again, I think, I don't even know, 5 years now? 6 years?
However long, 2017.
2017, oh, not that long, only 4. Continuing with that?
I'm happy to.
Perfect. All right, SEAM, Dr. Gilligan?
Yes, I will continue with that as well.
Okay. Legislation or legislative liaison. So typically, this is, as we're hearing things kind of from the state, whether it's, issues that are going on, funding concerns, any of us are able to kind of reach out to them. We've tried to keep the communication to them to be somewhat one person as a primary person. It has fluctuated a little bit over the past couple of years, but thoughts?
This was Mr. Tursi, right?
It was Mr. Tursi, yes.
Can you just elaborate a little bit? I'm sorry.
Yep,
It's
no
new-
problem.
It's new for me, so.
Yeah, no,
And
great
we
question.
need someone, and I'm new, so.
Yep, if it's new for you, then it's new for a lot of folks as well. So, there may be issues coming up, for example, with funding, Chapter 70 funding, things of that nature, where we would want to advocate for, changes, increases, modifications in how things are done and calculated. All of our state reps, do communicate with all of us together. If there's a budget approved or something going into committee, they do notify us typically where they're going. But the role is really to, have one person who's designated to somewhat reach out and speak on behalf of the committee.
And how is that communication? Is it via email? Is it Google Meets? Is it?
It's typically email. Sometimes it would be a phone call. I know with Christina Manacucci, sometimes we've texted back and forth, just, hey,
Yeah.
just wanted to check in.
And it's not like a regular, time frame, every third week of whatever. It's just as it comes up.
I'd say it's probably 16 hours a week or so. No.
It's like,
No.
oh no.
No. It's really kind of more so when they're kind of going in, they're establishing the budget and the policy, and then starting to vote on things. That we're more active with them on that.
And then whoever is the representative here, say it was me, would my name my contact info be shared with the correct people, or do I reach out? How do I know who?
Usually the person would just reach out, drop them an email at their state or gov email address, and just says, we just want to introduce myself. You may know them personally already, and just just touch base with them.
Okay.
Nothing crazy?
Yeah, no, I didn't know didn't know how it worked.
Okay, perfect, yeah. It's really to make sure that we have somebody in communication with them. And like Mrs. Madeley said, Mrs. Teresi definitely kind of filled that role in the past.
Okay.
So
I'm happy to add my name into that role unless someone else wants to.
I wrote your name down on my paper.
Oh, look at that. I will have a lot of questions, I'm sure.
perfect. I think Mrs. Picard gave a thumbs up. I had already written in when you started
Yeah, you
asking
did.
questions.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yep.
I think you're there by default.
Okay.
Okay, the North Andover Foundation for Education, an organization that kind of works to help with funds, and I think they've done some different things with school trips to help some students who may need some assistance with that. I don't know if they did any events last year, official
I don't think
events. I had worked with them in the past. I'm happy to see someone else work with them, or happy to continue as well. So just kind of scan the room.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
that is separate from the Live Your Learning group. Is that something that should be added to our list, or is
Live
that
Your
something
Learning is a
that's...
subset of the North Andover Foundation
Yeah.
for Education.
Okay, great,
Yep.
great, thank you.
I should have explained that a little better. A little bit of an umbrella there.
I think you should do it, Mr. McDevitt.
All right. I win by default. All right. PTO Presidents.
I'm happy to keep that. I think I have the easiest schedule to manipulate to be able to attend those meetings.
Okay, awesome. Any objections? Okay, great. The Health Advisory Council, Ms. Picard, you've kind of done that, again, I think for a significant amount of time. Is that something you're interested in continuing to do?
I'm happy to continue doing that. They only meet about 3 times a year, and it's usually middle of the day, so my schedule can accommodate that. But if there's somebody else who wants to do that, I could certainly step aside.
Okay. Anybody looking to jump in?
No.
Not yet. All right.
Not yet.
Okay. All right. The North Andover CPAC, the Special Education Parent Advisory Council, I believe, council or committee? Council, I think, right? Holly has typically represented them in the past. Any
Makes sense.
objections, any thoughts? Can I get a thumbs up there, Mrs. Picard? All right, very good. And they are, I think, scheduled to come and present to us on November 3rd, if I remember correctly. All right, almost last, we have Healthy Relationship Coalition. Ms. Picard, you want to tell us a little bit about that? I don't
Sure.
remember that one in the past.
So we started that a few years ago when we were concerned about students making sure that they have healthy relationships where there's an equal distribution of power, that there's no coercion and no unhealthy relationships going on. And that included starting, the YWCA does some courses for our students at North Andover High School with regards to just being safe, what to do if you're in a relationship that you're not safe, what are signs that a relationship may be going down a road that's unhealthy, how to leave a relationship. And that's friendships as well as romantic relationships. We've also done some education with our parent community around signs and symbols and interventions and resources if families are concerned about their students and the relationships they have. So that was a coalition of students, parents, and educators at the high school, and also reached down a bit to the middle school with the intention of some of the high school students going down and presenting and speaking with the middle school students about, appropriate boundaries in relationships and healthy relationships. That is transitioning. Nikki Murphy and Steve Nugent have been chairing that committee, and it is going to transition from being a standalone committee to being part of the Social Emotional Learning Committee at the North Andover High School. So I think it's appropriate to still have a liaison in there. And I'm happy to do that. I'm also happy to step aside. Again, those committee meetings, we did not have very many last year during COVID, but prior they met about every other month at like 1 o'clock on a Wednesday.
Sounds like you're pretty up to speed with it. All good with staying?
I'm happy to continue to do that, sure.
Okay, perfect. All right. And the last one that you mentioned earlier is there, the town asked, probably, might be wrong on my dates here, but probably the middle of August, we met just to talk about some diversity issues here within town. It just kind of worked out with my calendar that I was able to attend, so I did that. There has not been another meeting scheduled yet, but when that comes up, we'll certainly kind of take a look at that. I'm happy to continue to attend that if that's okay.
Great.
All right, and then just
Question.
Yep.
The administrative assistance negotiations, when do those come up next, Dr. Madeley?
They were concluded the year after the teachers and TA, so they're on that cycle where they're after, so we won't need them for this year.
Okay, great.
I think
When we get there, I think Ms. Petrovsky should do that.
That would be a good one to break her in on, yes.
That was my first one. That was my first one, actually, yeah.
Okay.
And
Fair.
food services, I think, is roughly the same as custodians as well.
Correct.
Okay, so
Yes.
that'll be coming up.
We did them.
Oh, that's right, we've already finished that. Okay,
Mhm.
perfect, that's right, thank you. All right, so I think the only last thing is, we'll update and we'll update the date and republish this 2021. All right, new item on the agenda here, the school capacity project. Dr. Madeley, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Chair McDevitt, before you
Yep.
do, we had talked about the November school committee date being either the 3rd or the 4th. I think I heard you say just now that the 3rd is going to be that meeting.
I think everybody did respond that the 4th was a holiday and that they could make the 3rd. Is that correct?
I think so.
And we checked through with NACAM.
When, October 3rd?
November
November.
I
3rd.
think it's.
November.
Okay.
I'll reconfirm with NACAM, but I
Okay.
thought the 3rd was still a go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then any updates on community chats?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Dr. Madeley.
Okay. So a lot of people know that September 23rd, the next school committee meeting, is when the school committee will be taking action on the recommendation that was made by the school capacity subcommittee. The chair asked, and it makes a lot of sense, that 2 weeks prior tonight, we kind of do a reminder to people of everything that's happened, what the recommendation was, what went into that recommendation, and then give them the opportunity in the next 2 weeks to provide input to the school committee members as they deliberate to make a decision on the 23rd. So that's the purpose of this presentation. As a reminder, we had Facilities Master Plan Phase 1, which is concluding. If you've driven up by the China Blossom there, behind it where the old, what was it, the Knights of Columbus, right? Knights of Columbus building is no longer, that's where the new senior center is going. That's the last project from Phase 1. All along, the focus of Phase 1 was town buildings, and focus of Phase 2 was going to be schools. There is the second fire station, and I think something to do with water treatment plant, but the focus was all along going to be on the schools. In order to renovate our older schools, provide needed support spaces for 21st century learners, impact class size, give us the ability to have capacity for future growth, and eliminate those portable classrooms that have been there well past their expected life. And so the specific projects are the Atkinson Elementary, Franklin Elementary, Kittredge Elementary, our 3 oldest elementary schools, and the North Andover Middle School, which we have known for a few years now is in need of renovation and is overcrowded, so needs some expansion. If people recall, it had been part of our initial MSBA submittal, and they certainly deemed it worthwhile. While it didn't make the final cut, it did make the first couple of cuts the first year we put in, and so they did indicate that they could see the need. It just, there were other priorities across the state that they considered higher at the time. So those are the 4 schools. The subcommittee was formed and wanted to make sure that all the schools were represented by the members of that subcommittee, which they were. We reviewed the space study commissioned by the superintendent and town manager, done by Mount Vernon Group, which did a thorough assessment of the physical conditions of our buildings, and that's available on the website, which you'll see in a moment. The subcommittee developed options and engaged the public to gather input, vet, and respond to plans. We brought the recommendation to the school committee in June, with the plan all along of the school committee having a final vote on the recommendation in September of 2021 in order to provide the town's facilities master plan phase 2 subcommittee to have that recommendation as they proceed. So we identified and evaluated the possible options for renovating and or restructuring our schools, and we presented the school committee and community with the findings. This included identifying the important aspects of the project, such as neighborhood versus grade distribution schools, how many transitions we were going to have regarding grade distribution. We reviewed prior year's enrollment projections, reviewed enrollment data, and updated the enrollment projections. We did a space capacity study after looking at the previous ones, and we updated those. We created a web page, which I'll show you in a moment, for access to meeting notes, the data, the research, and the final report. And we used multiple platforms in order to get the information out to the community. We also solicited community feedback specific to the various aspects of the projects and the options. We did that through a survey, which was very well. The community definitely had a strong response to the survey, well over 800 responses, and we had 3 public forums for them to ask questions. One of the things that we kept telling ourselves is we do not want to get to the end of this and have people say, have you thought about this? So while I'm sure it's still going to happen, we did our best to try to give people the opportunity to ask, and a lot of people did. It was very helpful, very interactive. And so some things were brought up that we hadn't thought of, but we're able to because they had brought them up. We try to identify all the possible options. I originally had written this as we identified all possible options, but who knows if that's the case. We did try, though. Conducted a pros and cons analysis of each option. We provided cost estimates for each option, and we generated a final report, which is available online. The communication we did and the feedback we got were through the open meetings the school committee has had through this process, the survey that was conducted, the webpage that's been created, the presentations that we've done in the school committee meetings and in the public forums, themselves. So I'm going to click now on, just so people can see. If you click under the header of the school webpage where it says school committee, there's a subheading, School Capacity Subcommittee. If you click on that, it brings you to this page right here. And you can see what we've done. It introduces you to the process and the project, the members, the goals that we had. You can click on the final report and read that for yourself. You can see the notes and the meeting agendas that we had, the timeline. You can also watch the presentations that were given to the school committee, including the one that had the final recommendation, by clicking on those links. The needs assessment, it would be great if people looked at these because they did a great job of identifying, of assessing the condition of our schools in pictures and in description. You can see it all. So those are worth clicking on. And you can also see the enrollment data we worked with, the grade configuration information we had, the proposed models that we considered, and the research resources that we used. So just as a reminder of the recommendation, we basically, based on input from the community and the school committee and others, staff, we also surveyed staff as well, I forgot to mention that. Maintain current grade distribution was important to the community and staff. Maintain the neighborhood schools. We want to make sure we add capacity and renovate to address equity, support spaces, 21st century learning, class size, and enrollment growth. And we want to remove those portables, but at the same time, as always, in North Andover, we want to make sure we are fiscally responsible, and we believe our recommendation is that as well. And that recommendation specific to the schools at Atkinson, we would remove the 2 portables out of there, renovate the school, and construct additional space. We're not specific on how much space yet. That will come from whoever's hired to design this based on it, because what might happen is we might decide to put more room at Atkinson than originally we thought we were going to put at Franklin. So it might move around that way, but the overall capacity should be what we've expected. At Franklin, we have 3 portables to remove. When we want to renovate the school, construct additional space, including a new gym. If you've ever been to Franklin, that is not a gym. It's a double classroom that's being used as a gym. And it's the one elementary school that really lacks in gym space, other than the ADECC, which comes up quickly here. Kittredge, the recommendation there based on the assessment report and the ability to try to add on to the existing, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to anyone we've talked to about this. So the recommendation there is to build a new school, which they're confident can be done on the same site, and connect to the existing gym, which is in great shape. It's fairly new. And so that's the recommendation for Kittredge. The middle school would be to renovate the school. It's solid architecturally, structurally. It just needs to be renovated in additional space to be decided where. People have strong opinions about, we've heard about the courtyard and we've heard about outside of the cafeteria. Again, that will be something that will be analyzed, and options will be provided to the school building committee, who will make that final decision. And then ABECC, we've included that because while the building is serving the students well, in most respects, it's not with regard to the gym. The cafeteria is large enough, but it does not provide a large enough gym space for the size of the school or the support space that we have. So that was included as well. So just as a reminder on the process, the subcommittee started forming in November, and we really started meeting in late November and then into December and on through until June. We conducted the community survey in April. We held public forums in May. The subcommittee presented the final report to the school committee in June. The school committee is deliberating on it since June and will continue to do so and take public input over the next couple of weeks if they haven't already received it to make the final decision at the meeting on the 23rd. And that recommendation will go to Facilities Master Plan Committee, subcommittee, I'm not sure what they're calling themselves. And we are also scheduling more public forums with the consultants, Mount Vernon Group, to help educate the public and get the word out and build support as we work towards the town meeting for May of 22. And those have been scheduled. So they're going to start on October 18th. We'll be at each of the schools and then some town venues as well. October 18th, we have the Atkinson Elementary, the 19th, Franklin. Following week, Monday and Tuesday, Kittredge Elementary on the 25th, and the middle school on the 26th. And then the Senior Center on November 4th, which it's the good thing about that is that one's a day meeting, so those who might work in the evening will be able to attend a meeting. They could do so on that date. We're going to be presenting to the Select Board at their meeting on November 8th, and the Youth Center on December 1st. And that's the update. Any questions?
I'm sure. So we'll bounce around the horn here. Mrs. Picard?
Yep. One of my questions is, will any of the public forums be accessible remotely? We got a lot of folks who said it was helpful to be able to pop in and out of a meeting, especially a daytime meeting, remotely, so they could do it from from, work or from, on a break or a lunchtime or something like that. So that's my question. Are any of the public forums going to be accessible remotely?
We will make sure they are.
Thank you.
Yep. And it
And
reminds
tremendous body of work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just remembered to let people know that the Mount Vernon group will be at the meeting on the 23rd, available to answer any questions that the committee might have, and they'll also be at all of these meetings, these public forums with the presentation. We'll be meeting Mount Vernon group, myself, Superintendent Gilligan, and the town manager will be meeting prior to those forums to strategize on the best way to communicate this to the community.
Thank you. No other questions, Mr. McDevitt.
All right, before we bounce around the horn, I'm just going to piggyback on to Mrs. Picard's remote option, but will we have North Andover Cam there as well?
Well, that's what I was trying to, that I thought would make sense would be have Cam televise these meetings and make them available for the public to remote in as well.
Okay, I think at least one where the public can ask questions is definitely important.
Yep.
Okay, all right, perfect. Ms. Petrovsky?
Yeah, so that was part of my question too, was how can we make this virtual? And then is there any way, I think we had talked somewhere along the lines about just like, if you haven't been to the gym at
Franklin?
At the Franklin, thank you, that you just don't know that that's not a gym. So we want to get as many people into those buildings as possible because we need as many people to support this as possible. So, if you're putting your house in the market, you often have a virtual tour. Is there any way to do that for some of the, if people can't make it? For some of the spaces, like, hey, this gym is not adequate and our kids deserve better, or the portable classrooms or whatever. I don't know if that's already been.
Yeah, no, it is something that we're going to discuss. We will have poster boards and the assessments, the pictures from the assessments, which include the gym. But we are thinking about doing a virtual tour as well.
I mean, not for, it doesn't necessarily need to be all of the building spaces, but I don't even know if you could get that, like if you would grasp it on the virtual tour, but it would be better than nothing, because it's awesome that we're putting this out there, but not everybody can always make it, but we need everybody on board with this too.
Yep.
Well, and maybe these public forums at these schools can include a tour of the space.
The actual walkthrough we thought of as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you had answered one of my other questions, like about staff being surveyed as well. And then I just have a question that kind of like bounces off of the early childhood building and the fact that we need to now kind of adapt. Was there, and I wasn't involved during that process, so maybe, I don't know, but if it seems that we planned for it and now we're realizing that it's not adequate for the gym space, right? So we want to make sure we're not having that same kind of problem. What kind of, what have we learned from that, or how are we changing so that we don't do that moving forward? I think especially there's a lot of talk in town because of all the new buildings that are popping up and all the new apartments, that's a big concern. And I know we've had all of the, the data is on here, but maybe if we can show what we learned or make it really clear, okay, this is what we learned from the early childhood building. We're not going to do this again. We're going to change it so that we can make sure we don't do that moving forward, or not have enough space, because this is this huge project, right? So anyway, does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and we actually have learned from phase one, which was that you don't want to let the number drive the project, and that's exactly what happened with the Brad Street, where we actually had originally, they designed a larger gym cafetorium, but we didn't have enough in the budget to do that, so we had to slim it down.
Okay.
And we paid the price for it. And so we've certainly learned that we've got to make sure that the needs are identified, and then the number is put based on the needs.
Okay. And then the website is fantastic. So much work is put into that. That's amazing. I want to make sure that the community knows that it's there. So can we email it out? Do people check their emails? Can we like robocall it out? Like, can we, because it's there, and I think, you know, people are hustling, bustling, especially this time of year, and we're all exhausted and going through the motions, but just like the health emails that come every day, we know they're there. We know how to find it if we need it. If maybe this comes out like regularly, just gotta keep, I don't know, just throwing it out there, just so nobody can say, I didn't know, and we want as many people to have as much information as possible, so.
We can certainly blast out a link with the information, and I think last year we had a lot of success with the gym. I think just even the survey, that might have been the biggest number I've seen participate in the survey. I think it was over 800.
Yep.
So we can certainly do that, and I just want to commend the group. I've never seen I've seen a lot of building projects, and I was part a long time ago being at the new high school. But the amount of people involved with different perspectives about needs, I think, was really impressive from all aspects of the community. So just a really diverse group put together to come up with this stuff. So.
And with those forums as well, you know, because I think there are a lot of people in the town who want to have their voices heard. So let's give them as many opportunities as possible and let them know about those opportunities. I mean,
Yeah, and the timing's good for the first kind of blast out, in that we can say that here, you know, just a reminder, the school committee is going to be voting on the recommendation on the 23rd. Here's the timeline of the public forums,
Right.
and here's the website link.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah, I think like blast it out, like overshare it, just because, you know, we're all busy and crazy, and you don't always see the first one, but you might see the third.
Yeah, I wonder if we might be able to solicit some of the mailing lists that the town has as well, because I know
Right.
sometimes I get emails from North Andover, but not, and some of our community members certainly don't have children in the schools, but, you know, this is an impact to town, and so we want to
Yes.
hit everybody.
They've been
Yep.
excellent of doing that. Just the recent survey we did with the adult education,
Okay.
and a couple of other examples, they've been great about, if we send it out in ours, they do it on theirs as well.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Awesome. Mrs. Madeley.
Yeah, so I wanted to go a little bit in a different direction, because we haven't discussed the recommendation at all. And this is our window between now and when we vote to get the community to comment on the recommendation specifically as well. So a couple things I just wanted to put out here that maybe we can even talk about now. First of all, I agree, the website's unbelievable. I spent a lot of time digging through there in June in particular, and a little bit over the summer. That needs assessment area, the historical stuff that showed back in 2006 that the Kittredge was ancient, is pretty amazing, and that certainly made it probably very easy to determine that you should have a new building there. So there is so much there to look at. It's incredible. So the recommendation, which I totally respect and I buy into on a lot of levels here, is to keep the current grade distribution, to maintain neighborhood schools, because people are emotional, right, about neighborhood schools. And I get that. I live in this area, and I walk around here all the time, and I get that. But a couple things keep coming across my mind that I just want to put out there for discussion. And that is, a lot of these schools that we're talking about renovating are right on this campus. And this is almost another idea that you haven't talked about that I just crossed my mind recently, which was, at one point, it was an idea to have grades 5 and 6 at the Atkinson, 7th and 8th at the middle school, right? And that was a concern, because that's a neighborhood school that you'd feel like you're breaking up. And I get that. But theoretically, you're building a whole new Kittredge school, which is really in the same neighborhood. So could be a neighborhood school. So a couple things keep crossing my mind that I would like the community to weigh in on, and the teaching staff, because I'm sure they have very strong teaching reasons for what they believe. But you could build a brand new Kittredge that could be grades 5 and 6, 7, 8, renovate Atkinson. You could do it the way you pitched it. There are other ways to make this area still community schools, because everybody goes here for the most part are from the same community. So, and the other piece is, so the emotional part would be for anybody who've got kids in elementary right now, 1 to 5. That's emotional to have to change your neighborhood school. But that's for the snapshot of people at this decision right today, right? The people who are in those schools right now, it's emotional. If your kids are coming in 4 years, your neighborhood schools, whatever it is when you come. So I would hate the emotion of that to drive the decision alone. Maybe this is the best decision. Maybe keeping grades 1 to 5 together is the best. I mean, I grew up with that. I get that. It makes sense. But I'd hate to just let the emotional part of that drive what we go forward with. I know there's also financial, so maybe that is critical as well. But I wanted to put that out there.
Can I just one clarification?
Yes.
I don't want to seem like that was the main reason regarding neighborhood school. It was one factor. Number of transitions was important. Was
Then that's
something
why
that
I
was
wanted
very
to hear that.
important
Okay.
to the community as well, and that was a concern about doing the 5, 6, 7, 8. It's one more transition for the students.
Right, okay.
Yep.
That's helpful to hear. So I would like to hear more if teachers or anybody have more things to say about those topics.
So you're saying
I'm-
keep elementary as 1 through 4.
That was one of the ideas.
Yeah, and I just don't remember all of the different, so 1 through 4, and then
It was a
have
5,
5 and
6,
6, and 7, 8.
And the attractiveness of that was, from what I understood, it was those schools, Atkins Center and the middle school, are on the same physical campus, and arguably you can make a bridge like the McDonald's bridge to whatever. There are ways to do that. If having a 5, 6 combo and a 7th, 8th combo gives you academic, social emotional sense to do that, I would be interested to know the underpinnings of that. And maybe that's too many transitions. But I also keep going back to, I know Franklin does this, and maybe other schools, they have a couple of first, second grade combos,
Right.
things like, and that's been a huge benefit. And it seems like a 5, 6 combo is an interesting benefit. And again, I would want to hear more from all of you about that. But so I still like that idea.
And I can tell you that initially, a lot of the subcommittee was enamored with that model.
Yeah.
But based on the feedback and the research we did, there was no clear benefit to that grade distribution, and the community really did feel strongly about the 1 to 5
Yep.
and the 6 through 8 middle school
Right.
model, and the staff as well.
Right.
Yep.
And the staff would probably be where I'd want to hear from the most. I get it as community members because that's what we know and it's comfortable and
I was
that's
actually
what we do.
surprised
So
at the survey results.
Yeah, so I would like, but I don't know if that's based on just pure emotion or is there, so that's one area. Again, I like the recommendation, it makes sense to me. I wouldn't mind more discussion around,
It's a big
This
decision. We
campus
should be
area. That's
talking
why.
about all of the options really
because
thoroughly.
we're talking for many, many, many years to come.
Right.
And so I would hate to not really push on that a little bit. So that's what I wanted to put out there. And then the other thing was the select board meeting. Are you actually having to present what to them?
It's
back
just,
in-
it's the same presentation.
Okay.
It just happens to be
It's going to be during one of their
during
meetings?
their,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's what I wanted to put out there. I don't know if you all want to discuss it or not, but I'd love the community, if anybody's watching, to weigh in on that, and definitely the faculty and staff and all of, you might have very good reasons for why it's a terrible idea, or why it actually deserves more consideration. I would love to hear more about that.
Was one of them, do you know off the top of your head?
Gotta
more
speak into the
cost-
microphone.
Oh, sorry. Was one of them more cost effective, if you can think of it off the top of your head? I'm just.
Well, we're renovating
That's-
anyway. So.
Yeah, so.
Oh,
the-
right, but
They are-
operational wise, would that change? Like,
That's interesting, yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
and we do have all the pros and cons on the
Right, it's on
website.
there, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I think it'd be interesting to kind of go through some of that a little bit next week before we vote, because I think those are interesting questions. I'm not sure what feedback we'll get in the next 2 weeks. It's kind of why I wanted to start
Exactly.
some discussion. I didn't want to jump right into a vote with this. So,
And if
Mr.
there's-
McDevitt?
Oh, sorry.
yep.
I'm sorry, I don't know that you can see me, so I've had my
No,
hand
I
raised
can, no.
for a little while. I'm very interested in what Ms. Madeley has raised, and I'm also wishing to be refreshed on the concept of having 6th grade stay at the elementary schools, because if we're adding on to 3 of the 5 elementary schools, then we could certainly add more classrooms and have sixth grade stay at the elementary level as a real consideration for alleviating the overcrowding at the middle school. So maybe, Dr. Madeley, you can refresh our memories
Oh, I
on,
like that one.
Yeah.
on that one.
It was another one that people thought, well, that might be a good idea, and it was one of the least favored
Yeah.
among the community and the staff. And again, that one surprised us as well.
But I guess we don't know why it was least favored. Is it least favored because, you know, if you have a fifth grader at the Franklin School where there's an inadequate gym, you're so desperate for your sixth grader to be able to be in a gym space where they can really stretch out? Is there a way for us to make sixth grade in the elementary schools more attractive? Again, just building off of what Ms. Madeley brings up about the emotional, we like what we know. We don't like change. And definitely, I know my two kids were ready to leave elementary at the end of fifth grade, but I think part of that's the mindset, right? I mean, the week before February vacation, like, we think we can't possibly go another week, but the people in New Hampshire somehow managed to go another week. So our mindset is vacation is almost here. It's time to go. You know, fifth grade is almost over. It's time to go. So I think even though we have that survey data, we don't know the whys behind the reasons that people preferred one thing or another. So I am, again, as Ms. Madeley suggested, looking for the community to weigh in again with some of their thoughts. I did get an email from a teacher last year, an elementary school teacher, who felt that fifth graders with first graders was really not an appropriate pairing anymore. Most of our fifth grade girls are physically mature in a way that first grade girls are not. And this teacher was advocating for that fifth and sixth grade standalone school. So that's more compelling than all these people want it this way. You know, when I hear a reason from the educators. So I think we really do have a rich discussion to have.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, we found that you could really go down a lot of rabbit holes in this because you can come up with a lot of variations of all the different models. And so what we did is we narrowed it down to those that were the best options. And then when you start looking for the feedback, one of the things we found in doing the research is you're going to find, just like anything else that you talk about, there are going to be people who support and research that supports, you know, sixth grade as part of elementary or sixth grade as part of middle school. So, you know, one of the things we really struggled with as we started this subcommittee was, were we going to bring forward and identify the different options and then have the school committee kind of vet the options and pick which one it wanted, or did the school committee want us to do that and then bring forward a recommendation? Right. So on the website, you will see all of the pros and cons, all of the discussions that we had, the community feedback, and this is the recommendation that the subcommittee made, and it wasn't necessarily what the individuals on the subcommittee wanted or were most interested in, but it was what the subcommittee thought that the community strongly felt this was the recommendation to be made.
And I do remember Ms. Lynch bringing that forward to us last spring, that, you know, individual members of the subcommittee did have, you know, their own recommendations versus what they thought was really most workable. And, you know, the truth is that the voters that are excited about schools today are the ones that are gonna carry forward the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that as well. And I just would thank you, Mr. McDevitt, for, you know, making sure that we have this. You know, we had the recommendation at the end of a very busy year. We had the summer to reflect on that a little bit. And so it's really good that we have now and in a couple of weeks to review this again. So I appreciate this being brought forward.
Okay.
Can I ask a process question?
Sure.
Sorry. So the recommendations have been presented today, and then we're not voting on anything today.
Not voting today.
When are we voting?
Next
The 23rd.
meeting, the 23rd.
The next meeting,
Yep.
okay. So I'm just concerned that if we're having these conversations about different options, so what does that mean to the process? So if this is the recommendation, we either vote yes or no to approve it.
Yep.
But if we voted no, then what happens?
We can revise the recommendation. The recommendation came in from the subcommittee.
Right,
If based on conversation and feedback,
okay,
we make another decision, then that can be voted on. So if I'm not saying we would do this, but
Yeah.
if somebody said, we're gonna build a school for only third grade, and everybody on the committee said, that's the most brilliant thing I've ever thought of in the world, we could make that vote.
okay.
I'm not going to make that motion.
No, I know, I just wanted to make, because I know
Yeah.
we've done the surveys, we've included like everybody with how, like we've asked as many people as possible, we had a good response. So I just wanted to make sure I understand that, okay, so there could be a potential other, but if we already had all of this back work done, does it make sense to then look at what's here, discuss what's here, ask these questions? Because I wouldn't want to
I think that's what
slow.
we're doing.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I just want, okay, so there's not gonna be a delay, I just don't wanna slow down the process, that's all.
No, understood.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
So, couple of thoughts with this. One, Dr. Madeley, as you're putting together the presentation with is it the Mount Vernon group?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I said that correctly. I do think, kind of just dusting off the pros and cons, I think to help remind people of why, for example, 5th and 6th was not recommended, I think is good. I mean, obviously, we have the materials. There's a lot of information to absorb. There's a lot of information for people to absorb as well. I just think that that's important for us to take a look at. I do have a couple of quick thoughts that are here. I'm not sure if there's necessarily answers for them today. When I look at the ABECC, there's definitely concerns about the gym, and so I'm glad that that's there. That has created issues with lunch and how they kind of shuffle them out and the amount of gym time that those students have. And so I think anyone who's ever had a 5 and a 6-year-old knows the amount of energy that they need to kind of burn off. And so having as much gym time as possible is definitely a good thing. So I'd be curious, if there's a creative way to do that, perhaps, even expanding the cafeteria to change what the day might look like for that, so that we can, the cafeteria is not that large, and so I think they shuffle a number of kids in there, pretty quickly in order to kind of get that done, and that limits some of the gym time that they have. So I'm glad to see that additional support staff space is out there as well, especially with the preschool component, not just the kindergarten as well. So the fact that we have space right now for social distance reasons in trailers, and those kind of out there, I think is something that we need to take some serious consideration in how much space is there. And again, not planning for today, but for the future. Next, the Kittredge Gym, I love the fact that we built that, I think probably about 6 years or so ago. Would question a little bit, if that's the best type of building as we kind of go forward, if we are spending money for that to kind of retro that in. It's not a gym, for example, that, there can be stands in for people to watch. I know the other gyms don't necessarily have that, but just because they don't have it doesn't mean that we shouldn't necessarily consider that as an option. The forums that we have, for example, Atkinson on the 18th from 6 to 8. I'm just curious are each of these forums going to be somewhat the same, or at Atkinson will we perhaps focus more on the impact it will have to the Atkinson school and community, and then discuss Franklin Kittredge in the middle school And then at Franklin, do we focus on Franklin? And you know what I'm saying?
That's absolutely the intent, is
Okay.
to kind of give the overall, but then to focus on that location. And we'll have the subcommittee member who represents that school be the one leading the meeting, so that after the meeting, if there are questions, that they have that contact as well.
Okay, so would it be safe to assume at the senior center, the town hall for the select board meeting and the youth center, that they would be more equally divided in terms of what's going on and cover the in-depth of each of the schools?
So those 4 will be more about, equally about the 4 projects, and then available to answer any questions that people might have.
Okay. I recognize that, kind of coming up and presenting to the select board meeting November 8th kind of gives us the plan and the opportunity as they start to look at budgets and motions and put together warrants for town meeting. All of that is definitely great. I see the logic that's there. What I struggled just a little bit with is, and I'm hoping that this isn't the case, this ends December 1st in terms of this timeline that's here. Town meeting will be 5 months later. The spring schedule is going to need to have to come out because, we've seen in town meeting 300 people show up and get something passed, and they walk out when there is the chickens that are approved, and everybody walks out of the meeting. So, I think we have to spend significant amount of time in the spring to build community excitement and momentum in order to get this passed. The amount of work that's been done on this, we can't just let kind of fizzle in December. So I would like to see, even if it's preliminary, a little bit of a spring schedule kind of coming forward.
You're absolutely right. It's kind of funny because, it's kind of like when Dr. Gilligan has to call school off for snow, which hasn't had to do in a while. But you've got half the people who are angry and half the people who are happy. I've got plenty of people telling me that we're not getting a word out enough, and I've got people saying don't do it too soon.
Yep.
So this is the first wave, and we are definitely going to try to start the momentum and then build it through the year. So you're absolutely right. We will have the next wave after that.
Okay. And the last thing that I'll just say, and it just kind of in thinking this through, I'll touch base with Dr. Gilligan on this and certainly NACAM, but I do think we need to move the meeting next, or the 23rd, to not be here. If we're going to have participants from the Mount Vernon group present, I would anticipate a larger number of the community, the subcommittee. I do think we probably need to look maybe at the senior center again. I think we want to make sure we've got some different projection opportunities. I know, we presented off of a TV screen in that, but if you were more than 2 to 3 rows back, I think you had trouble reading it.
We couldn't see.
I'm sorry, yeah.
couldn't see it.
Even us, we had trouble seeing it as well. So I think we want to look at what a better space is going to be for that.
Mm-hmm.
We can check with NACAM tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. All right. I had a bunch of thoughts here. I think you guys asked most of them for this point. I'll do one last quick hop around here. Mrs. Picard?
Questions on
Questions
school capacity?
on, no, not open forum, just the planning, school space planning.
That's what she said, school
Okay.
capacity.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
no, I
sorry.
don't-
I thought you
I
said
have
on
no
anything.
more questions on school capacity.
Okay.
Thank you.
perfect. All right, Ms. Picard?
I
I'm
don't-
sorry, Ms. Petrovsky.
That's okay. I knew who you meant.
Too many Ps.
It's been a long day.
Yep.
I don't think, because I think you had actually asked some of the questions that I had, my follow-up questions. Oh, I think I'm good right now. Thank you.
Okay.
No, just thanks again to the subcommittee and
Yeah.
to you, Dr. Madeley. You guys have done some tremendous work and got a lot of information. There's so much on that site. It's actually fantastic. So
Yeah.
I appreciate everything you're doing and look forward to hearing more from our community members
All right. All right.
and staff.
Anything else on that, Dr. Mealy?
I don't have anything else, no.
Okay. All right. Gonna have a busy night on the 23rd. Okay. So we'll jump in. There is no new business. We're gonna jump into some old business here. So continued discussion on the overnight field trips. So last meeting, we had asked the different schools to kind of say what trips are possible that are out there, just to kind of give us a lay of the land, a little bit of an understanding. I think we wanted to see what was there, start to ask some questions, for example, COVID protocols, refunds, things of that nature. And we had a list of that. So that was kind of our new business at that point. We have a list of trips that, are here right now. I would like to suggest and propose that we're really only looking at the one, I think it's only one in the fall at this time. So if you do have the Excel, you have it there.
Row 6.
The first one has actually been canceled to Scottsdale, and so the only other one is row 6, which is the boys and girls cross country team to Van Cortlandt State Park for that. So the rest of them I would propose we hold. However, if we have information that we need on any of them, this gives them, the advisors, time to kind of move forward with that. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I did click in on some of them, and some of them say we're still gathering information.
Right.
So I just don't think we're ready to weigh in on any of these things. And as we saw, we've already had 2 get canceled.
We've had 2 canceled already. Yep. Okay. All right. So I forget in your packet what page it is, but it's about, I see page 44 on my sheet here. I don't know if that corresponds to anything. Can we talk about the boys and girls cross country team trip? Dr. Gilligan, do you want to speak on this? Do you want me to speak on this?
No, I'd be happy to. I appreciate your comments earlier for the context. We did meet yesterday with town and school health officials talking about the field trips because it's a situation we're monitoring closely. At the last meeting, someone asked a question if we had made any deposits and whether they were fundable. And yes, there's one trip, the Spain trip. I believe they've made a $38 deposit, and it's totally refundable at this time. There have been some trips that are canceled, and again, we're monitoring the situation closely. We're keeping close touch with the health officials, and we may see, we'll monitor that as it goes, but we also may see some of the companies and the other folks canceling on us. So speaking about the trip to Van Cortlandt Park, it's an outdoor event. Students travel with their parents. It's a very small group of students, and my understanding is that they do qualify. I believe this weekend is the qualifying race to determine who will go, and we're looking to get that approval tonight.
All right. So is there a motion regarding the boys and girls cross country team overnight trip to Van Cortlandt Park?
So I
So
make
I
a
move-
motion. Go ahead, Helen.
I move to approve the overnight trip for the cross-country team to Van Cortlandt State Park in Manhattanville, New York, as presented in the back.
Okay.
Second.
So, all right, second by Mrs. Petrovsky. Okay, questions regarding the trip? So we'll start with you, Mrs. Picard.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, so are COVID policies going to be carried out throughout the field trip? So if people are in indoor spaces, they need to wear masks. If they're in outdoor spaces, they don't have to wear masks. How does that work in hotel rooms? Are there hotel room sharings going on? I know students are traveling with their parents, so I don't know if the hotel rooms are all family units or just some of those things, and like the Corey Story stuff for the adults that might be chaperoning children that may not be their own.
Yep.
Some clarification on all that would help me.
Yep, so I can answer that from some personal experience. So, this is in New York, so any guidelines that are in New York regarding space within the hotels, we will have to follow and abide by. So, for example, I was recently in New York, masks are required in the lobby, all common spaces, elevators, all of those things. Going into restaurants, I had to show a vaccination card in order to kind of go into those. So the team would have to follow any of those. There would be some students who would be sharing rooms, and that would be done with parental consent going forward. And there are some students who I would imagine might stay with their parents as well.
That all makes sense. Thank you very much. I guess I would wonder then if there were any students with medical exemption for vaccine not being vaccinated, how they're accommodated for restaurants and stuff like that.
I don't know what the New York law is on that.
Yeah, so we'd have to take a look at actually
Yeah.
who qualifies and who'd be able to go. Different status, they would, so that we could follow all appropriate, travel regulations and recommendations.
Yeah, we know that we don't want to leave anybody behind because of any medical reasons, just like we wouldn't want to leave any students behind because of special education reasons. So I'm concerned about those. I'm certainly inclined to vote yes, and I'm certainly appreciating that you all are thinking about these things. I'm not the only one thinking about these things. So it's helpful to have a little bit more information.
Perfect. Mr. Petrovsky?
Yeah, I guess thank you, Helen, for bringing those up because I hadn't actually thought of that. But I was thinking like travel between states last year at this time was confusing, and I guess it's still confusing, but maybe a little less confusing. But I guess it all changes too. So I don't actually have any questions. Just I guess I know we're all mindful of everything changing. So yeah.
I think if you are vaccinated and you travel across state lines, you are fine to do that.
Right.
So that I think
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
helps out as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Madeley?
No questions, it's certainly a good one to have as a first one, because it does seem like it has, the travel is key, that the parents are driving them and all that, and that's been traditionally how it's done anyway.
Interesting enough, it was done 2 years ago, October of 2019, and had not been done for many years prior.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so no, I think, it doesn't seem like that's a big expense either. I mean, and I would imagine, I appreciate what you're saying, Ms. Picard, about don't want anybody left out, but there may be some people who opt out of their own accord as well.
Yep.
So,
They do have to qualify.
and they do have to qualify to even
Yep.
get accepted.
Right.
Okay,
True.
helpful. Thank you.
All right.
And will all the adults who are accompanying them be vaccinated, or is that something we do or don't have any decision-making over?
They are parents, and I don't believe parents would be sharing rooms outside of their homes. They could be. I don't know that. Again, most of the event is outside.
Yeah, this has historically been a very small event. It's a small group. And in fact, a lot of years, as we brought up and brought it to the attention of the committee, myself and a committee member, this was something they were traveling under a running club for years, I believe. And so it's a small group, and we'll keep that. Whoever qualifies, we'll have our health folks work with the families to have the most up-to-date information so that we follow all the recommendations, rules, and regulations.
All right, no other questions. I'll call a vote. Mrs. Picard?
Yes.
Mr. Petrovsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Madeley?
Yes.
Sorry. I looked, but I didn't say it.
Yes.
All right, and the chair is actually going to abstain, but this will pass 3-0.
301.
301, correct. And I am, I don't think I have to say why I'm abstaining, but I have a son who will be traveling, so, okay. Here's my agenda. All right, so public comment.
Sorry, one
Mr.
thing before we
McDevitt?
leave this. Yeah.
Yep.
I have a question, and it sounds like Ms. Picard does too, before we leave this topic.
Yep. Ms. Picard, you want to go first?
Yeah, I just, looking at Spain for February, I am wondering if there is some urgency, or if you guys know that there is no urgency for this to be approved, because February is going to come up very quickly, and they're going to be needing to make the next steps, I would imagine.
It is. Right now, they only have to put down a $39 deposit. And I think we want to understand a little bit more in terms of international travel before we vote on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry, Mrs. Madeley?
And so my question is kind of similar. So I remember in years past, we've approved certain trips, and then they never went because there weren't enough numbers to accommodate.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's worth, or if it gets people's hopes up or what have you, to pursue some of these and find out, should the school committee allow it, are you willing, is your kid, or is the kid willing to even consider this trip? So it's a little bit of a cart before the horse, but it might be helpful to know, we just worry about all these things and do a lot of research and find out, well, nobody's willing to go to Germany anyway. So I don't know if there's a way to pursue that.
Yeah, I think we can definitely dive into that. I can tell you, having been here for a while, that I can't remember exactly how long ago. I want to say about 4 years ago. Students were looking to go to France.
That's the one I'm thinking of too.
And there were some events, I feel like in the fall, if I remember.
Yep.
And that
Terrorist kind of stuff.
yeah, there was a little bit of apprehension on even from the State Department in terms of foreigners traveling, and so that was basically sunset. They tried to get students to go to Quebec, if I remember, perhaps Montreal, and we did not get enough interest in that trip.
That's exactly what triggers me to ask this
Yeah.
question. Yep.
And I appreciate, putting this on early. I know it's something that we have to monitor closely. This is certainly something we've never really experienced before, because typically we follow a lot of guidelines: health, safety, State Department guidelines and guidance. I don't think anyone, from an educational standpoint, wants to shut the door and say, there's just no trips. But at the same time, make no mistake about it, I mean, I know all of us in this room, the health and safety of our kids is the top priority. And I think that, meeting yesterday with the town officials and school health officials to start taking a look at these things, I think we're going to have to gather more information and come back at this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think one thing, and this might be a little bit what Mrs. Picard might have been alluding to, for example, the trip to Spain, timelines of, even things like deposits and payment schedules, things of that nature. I'm kind of looking at the screen, that may be helpful because, while we want to be sure people are able to get refunds if necessary, but I think understanding some of that can be important in this world of unknown right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't mention it before. I'm not sure I mentioned it last time. But this is something, too, that I've been connecting with local superintendents on. It's not unique to North Andover, and it's an issue that folks are tackling currently at this time. So it's always great to collaborate with our neighbors. And I'm sure that you guys, if you have not already, probably this week will see something come across your listserv for MASC, if it hasn't been out already.
Okay.
So.
Perfect. All right, so we'll move on to public comment. The public has left, so we'll look to you, Mrs. Picard.
Yeah, I just, I had occasion to stop by a couple of the elementary schools this week when I was out for my morning walks, and it was just so great to see all the kids out there, connected with the principals in a couple places to just thank them. And it was just really, it seems like it's been a great start to the school year, so I congratulate everybody on that. And I would just mention to folks that we will be having in town the September 11th Remembrance, which will be at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, the 11th of September at Patriots Park, right outside the library. So if folks want to have that kind of opportunity to remember. And it will be recorded by NACAM, and it will be shown on their Gov channel, I think, following. It won't be live streamed, but it will be following. So I just wanted to raise that and send out my heart to those who were impacted by that horrible day. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Petrovsky.
Yeah, I don't really have anything specific other than just it's so great to see kids back in school, and even with the traffic. I feel like there's more traffic in general everywhere actually right now, but
A lot of road work.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's just so great to see everybody back and see the sports and the activities and all the things that are happening. I know my own two that are here in the district are happy and thriving, and even if they don't always say they're happy and thriving, they're happy and thriving. So we're just glad to be back.
Mrs. Madeley?
I would just like to say a very massive thank you to Bev Zagari. I knew Bev by email only for many, many, many years as a PTO person, and I saw her as being 50 feet tall because she knew everything and had all the right answers and was super helpful. And I didn't meet her for probably 5 years. And then once I met her, she's just a tremendous human, and I'm going to miss her terribly, and I thank her for all her years of service here.
Same for Mrs. Zagari. The other thing I would just add from a public comment perspective, I think most people know, and I'm just scrolling to make sure that I have a little bit of the information that is here, but as many of you know, Johanny Rosario Pichardo, and I apologize if I have not said that name entirely correctly, but there are a number of events kind of coming up over the next couple of days to honor our Lawrence Marine who was killed in Afghanistan. So I know that there is a funeral mass on the 13th, and then there is a public wake on Tuesday the 14th, and then I believe, and I was trying to find it, I don't know, Dr. Gilligan, if you know this, but I think on Saturday there is basically a funeral procession, which is on 9/11 from basically Logan up 93 to 495, and then on to 114 to the funeral home. So I do anticipate more information kind of being out, and I imagine a huge number of people will be lining the street to show their respects.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my understanding too. For those who may not know, on opening day, we did hold a moment of silence for Johanny Rosario. And then we had a recent graduate kick off the ceremony with the singing of the national anthem after. Our hearts are broken for the Tower Hill native, all of her family and friends. She was a 2014 Lawrence High School graduate. And, if there's more information, I can even tweet it out tomorrow. I know that there's quite a bit that's been happening with it. But I haven't seen all the final details. But our hearts are broken and go out to all of our neighbors in Lawrence. And her family impacted everywhere.
All right, no other comment. I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mrs. Madeley, is there a
Second.
second? Mrs. Petrovsky, any conversation, debate? Roll call vote. Mrs. Picard?
Yes.
Mrs. Petrovsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Madeley?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We are adjourned until the 23rd.
Thank you.